drive the organization that we built or we run. Some of us own teams, and we would love to understand what would it take to drive a culture of innovation in our respective teams, right? So would love to understand more about this, and over to you, Govind. Thank you so much for joining us.
Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Is it clear enough?
Yes, Govind.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and let me know once you can see it.
And guys, while Govind sets his screen up, this is going to be a very interactive session. For those who were a part of my our earlier session with Ganpati, you would have realized that. Feel free to keep shooting questions on the chat. So you have a chat box there. Feel free to keep typing out questions for Govind. I will be moderating this. If there are similar questions, I would be clubbing them and putting it across to Govind at logical intervals. So we would keep taking questions at logical intervals. I would club a few questions if they're similar and put it out so that it's of impact to all those who are attending the session today. Over to you, Govind.
Thank you so much, Gautam. And I'm super excited to have this webinar. It may not be that interactive in person, but I'm sure technology can actually come to our rescue here. Innovation is actually something which is viral. So I personally believe that there is always a best in everyone, which you can always adopt and absorb from various organizations across the globe. And my session here, in this session, my endeavor would be to see how I can actually help various organizations take inspiration from some of the best practices that we at Intuit do. So I am Govinda. I am a group engineering manager, and I lead the engineering group for what is known as QuickBooks Online Advanced. QuickBooks Online Advanced is a mid-market offering from our accounting space, serving millions of small business and mid-market owners across the world. And this is an offering which was developed as a startup group based out of Intuit around 1.5 years ago, and which we are super proud of in terms of having a thriving startup culture within a corporate background. So that explains the backdrop of why I am talking about innovation culture, first and foremost. But even before we delve a little deeper, I would love to spend a few minutes talking about who am I, what's my background, and what is my passion. As Gautam pointed out, I have been in the information technology industry, working for various product companies, the last two being Intuit and prior to that being at Oracle. And I've been working in this industry for nearly 18 years. And in this 18 years, the last 10 years, I've been in the business of nurturing and coaching people and also developing high-performing teams across the globe. As part of this, I have had the history and the fortune of setting up 6 teams in various years in various teams across different organizations, bootstrap from scratch. So one of my passion in my profession is all about how do I set up high performing teams and nurture them to a level of critical mass and maturity where they can actually be on an autopilot mode. So that is all about me. And in this whole session, I'm actually going to talk about what are some of the best practices that we in Intuit do in order to foster a great innovation culture backed by a high engineering organization. So that is all about this presentation. So even before we get started, having a culture is something that various organizations and various management researchers have all researched upon. In the market, you would find a lot of books which actually focus on culture. My favorite speaker and thought leader is Simon Sinek, who has been extremely inspirational about how we should indeed focus on building the right organizational culture. So this quote always resonates with me whenever I actually go and set up teams. Customers will never love a company until the employees love it first. So one of the key tenets behind this is also the fact that know your right stakeholders. Now, let me get into a soapbox moment and talk about what we do at Intuit, right? So we have a clear line of sight on who are our stakeholders. Our number one stakeholder in Intuit is always the employee. Only after that, we do have the customer, and then we do have our partners, and then we have our stakeholders. The fundamental belief is that it is the happy employee who build happy products, which gets us happy customers. So employee happiness and employee engagement is the underlying factor which actually governs building a high performing and an innovative culture. So this is a theme that you will see in some of the conversations that I'm going to get into as part of this webinar, right? So what are the top pillars of innovation culture? So keeping the employee engagement and happiness index as a one of the overarching principles, it still can be divided under 5 different areas, which I'm going to talk about in greater length. And Gautam, one of the ways in which we could take questions, and I would love it to be more interactive, would be at the end of every topic that we are going to cover. Maybe we could have a logical sequence, or you could interrupt me after 2 sections that we complete. So primarily, if I were to talk about what constitutes an amazing innovation culture, with employee engagement being a guiding force or a principle, it would be on focusing on the customer, focusing on whom you are trying to solve for, understand the customer, then focus on the right set of innovative practices. Do you have the right processes? Do you have the right methodologies that you incorporate in order to get the right customer and solve for the right problems that you want to get into? Then we actually get into the engineering culture, because we believe that great engineers build great products. And once you build a product, especially in a SaaS world, primarily this webinar is focused towards modern tech, which includes SaaS products. How do we ensure that having great operation is also fostering innovation? And last but not the least, in a startup culture, how does extreme ownership play a very big role? Now, without getting into any other topic, let me get deeper into customer empathy. Now, we have heard of this term KYC, know your customer. Now, know your customer might be important from a compliance perspective, to know the customer details and figure out you are serving the right customer. But it is even more important from building the right product, that you are actually targeting the right customer. Now, there are multiple ways of figuring it out. Now, even before I get into understanding what my customer wants, I need to know who my customer is. Now, in Intuit, we have various customers. So even before we identify the customer profile, we need to see the persona of customers that we deal with. Now, Intuit or any other company which is in the SaaS space has 4 categories of customer. That is what I would like to call out first. You have the direct customer, the end user, the person with multiple roles, responsibilities, and personas, who builds and his life around the product that you build, right? So that is the primary customer. That's what I have highlighted here. Now, if I were to take a look at a product like TurboTax, this is the average taxpayer. Or if I were to take a moviegoer in the context of a ticket booking system, this is my moviegoer, or the person who books the ticket. But that is not the end of it. And that is where a lot of times we actually end up building special products which are not accessible for rest of our customers, right? So there exists another set of customers who actually fuel the ecosystem, right? Who are they? The other side of the spectrum would be your influencer. If in the context of Intuit, we build financial products. We build products which actually help consumers file their taxes. We build products which actually helps our customers handle accounting for small to medium businesses. Now, even though accountants do not play a direct role in using these products on day to day, accountants do play a very important role in influencing how the financial lives of our end customers are actually, impacted by our product. Now, uh, an analogy can actually happen in the context of our customers. If I'm building a book my show kind of a product which actually helps me book tickets, these would be my movie owners or theater owners or show owners who would actually be using the product along with my customers, because this becomes an ownership for them to influence which of their movie theaters are actually represented in the product. These are not your only two categories of customers whom you deal with. In modern day, platform is actually another way of monetizing. Gone are the days wherein you can build your feature by yourself. We are living in a connected world where every system talks to each other. So having an open platform is sacrosanct from day one when you build great products. So platforms would mean that there are other engineers and developers who are going to build products on top of your platform. So you need to consider what would be the life of a developer who is building a connected app on top of your platform. If it is a book my show product, or if it is booking a reservation at a hotel table, there would be third-party developers who love to leverage these, and there are different portals which actually help you expose APIs through some of the standard technologies, so that third-party developers can actually come and thrive in your ecosystem. So having that right partnership mindset from day one is extremely important. Last but not the least, you may decide to have your customer care with you, or you may decide as you grow in size and volume of your business that you would want to uh, you know uh, outsource or have a partner agency handle customer care call. Now agents need to actually have empathy towards customers, so they need to go through the same set of experience that our customer has, right? In order to have it, you need to provide them with the right set of tools to debug what is going on with a customer. Building those right tools from a customer care perspective, even if you are handling the customer care directly from your organization, or you are actually outsourcing that to a third party vendor with partnership, is extremely important from day one. So this forms the quad of what we actually call as the KYC. It is extremely important for us to build solutions or features for all these aspects of our customer base from day one. Now, how do we get more empathy on customers? So we actually run a program called Follow Me Home. This is something which is a secret sauce into it, where we practice and we take pride in this. Every single employee who joins our organization, we actually have a program wherein these employees get to talk to our customers within the first 90 days of having them onboarded to our organization. Now, this would not mean that you get to talk to only the customers of our organization. It could mean that customers who are not yet in the digital revolution, or these could mean that customers who use a competitive product, or customers who actually do not use any of the software for accounting, but they do still run a business. Now, understanding how the lives of these customers are is extremely important. One of the methodologies that are usually followed is customer interviews and surveys, but that would not help because you are talking to a customer in a restrained environment. Instead of bringing in a customer and having an interview, having your organization members or team members follow the customer in their natural habitat is extremely important to make those connects to identify those customer problems which are unstated. Henry Ford actually famously quoted that if I had to listen to my customers or ask my customers, what do you want? They would actually tell me that we need faster horses. Whereas Henry Ford knew that what he wanted to build was a car in order to compete with those faster horses, right? So going back to that analogy, our customers do not know what are their inefficiencies. Our customers do not know what they really want. There are customers who have clarity, but if I were to generalize it, they may not be able to identify what may hamper productivity for them. And software is all about automation. Software is all about bringing in and unleashing those efficiencies which our customers may not be exposed to. Booking taxi through a Uber, or having a reservation made in a movie theater, or even having an airline ticket uh, at the click of a few buttons is bringing in that efficiency which was not available to our customers before. So that is what we could get by actually following our customers to our natural habitat. So this program is actually known as Follow Me Home. In a remote site like India, where we do not have direct exposure to customer, we also enable our employees to get customer empathy through multiple means. This includes that we do have a partnership with a call center provider, and our partner takes all our customer calls from US customers during India nighttime. So it is a very common practice for our engineers and our product managers and designers to visit call center a couple of evenings after office hours just to listen into the customer calls. So what we provide is through the Amazon Connect program, we actually have an extra jack of audio through which our employees could just listen into our customer calls. This actually helps them understand both the customer as well as the agent experience. So, first and foremost, we understand the customer frustration when they talk, how quickly we have an opportunity to either retain or lose a customer, how quickly the satisfaction from the product can actually turn into a dissatisfaction. So this is something we get, and we get to capture the exact emotion of a customer even while the customer is in a call with the agent, and the customer does not even know that another person is listening to the call. Whereas from the call center agent perspective, we also get an idea on, are we providing the right set of tools? Are we empowering our agents to build or that relationship with the customer quickly, to identify the customer through our CRM tools, etc. So this is actually a great leveler, and is actually one of the important aspects in our teams building great software. Now, I would love to dwell a little bit on partnership versus competition, which I covered in the previous part. Now, one of the great examples that in modern times we could think of in having the right customer focus, even while you compete with your business rivals, would be the example of Satya Nadella from Microsoft partnership model. We take a lot of inspiration from him. So when Satya took over as the CEO of Microsoft, he encouraged his Office team, which actually famously builds the Office 365 suite of applications for office productivity, including Outlook, Yammer, etc., to launch apps in Apple and in Android stores. Now, he famously quoted in his autobiography saying that this would have been an unspoken word earlier in Microsoft corporate office. Having that partnership versus competition model with a customer first mindset enables you to make these right for customer decisions. Even though Microsoft was still competing with Apple in the personal computing space, and even though Microsoft is competing with Google and Apple in the mobile computing space, it does not deter another division of Microsoft, which is the Office software space, from launching free applications in iPhone and in Android. This is an unparalleled exercise that Satya unleashed in order to capture the mobile market on office productivity. We do take a lot of inspiration from this. Many examples can be quoted in Intuit partnership model with businesses with whom we compete. And at the same time, these are businesses with whom we have the right partnership so that for the customer, we have the right seamless experience. Now, one of the areas that we need to understand is what is the role of a triad when you build great products and how do you foster innovation? There are three functions, obviously. You do have a product manager, you do have an engineer who builds the product, and you also have an experienced designer who builds the right set of experiences. Now, I have been coached by great coaches in my last 10 years of engineering management career that uh, building great products with innovation is like navigating a ship. And you need to be super clear in your triad spectrum to figure out who is responsible for what. Understanding that clarity of role is extremely important in decision making. So I would love to cover this same analogy in this webinar as well. So let us assume that building a product is equivalent to navigating a ship. We get our customers who are our passengers in the ship. The product manager decides where the ship will go. So you make a promise to our customer that this ship is actually moving from London to New York. And that is a promise that is being made, and customer makes informed choices based on the destination that is being announced. But is that what it is? Not really. We also need to make sure that the passengers or our customers who buy our product are provided the right experience while they navigate the ship. And that is the role of the XD. So the XD or the experience designer actually works in the perimeter of what is the destination where the customers are being taken to and makes life simpler and an enjoyable experience for our customers. Now, that leaves the question, where does that leave the engineers and the engineering team? What matters most is what is the promise that is made to the customer? Did we promise that you will take the customer from one destination to another in 7 days? Did we promise that the customer will be provided with the right temperature in the rooms? Did we provide a promise to the customer that there won't be a wobbling experience? This is the role of the engineering team. The engineering team is expected to meet those commitments, which are made as promises to the customer. That includes speed or velocity. That includes non-functional requirements about security, about availability, about quality, about stability, etc. And that is the analogy of the role of the triad that I always take when we set up great teams. Now, one of the important aspects of a highly functional triad is also about co-location. In a geographically distributed environment, it is not uncommon to actually have your engineering teams distributed and have your product manager who decides the where or what to build kind of a question and how the experience should be answered by an experienced designer geographically distributed. Now, how do you work in such an environment? In such an environment, even though you work in a startup mode, you work in a new product, new incubation mode, it is extremely important to first ground yourself on what is the customer profile and the persona for whom you are building. Having follow me homes, including remote follow me homes, would actually help you understand as a triad whom are you solving for and what you're trying to solve for. Then comes the individual roles and responsibilities of the function. With that, I'll actually delve a little deeper on what we in Intuit take pride in what we call as the two core capabilities of innovative practices. This starts with what we call as the customer-driven innovation, and then you actually get into what we call as the design for delight. So let me focus a little bit on the CDI, or the customer driven innovation. For every problem that we solve, we do have a structure on how we approach that problem. It is extremely important to first find and articulate the problem. So whenever our teams, our product teams, which includes the product managers, engineers, and the designers, and many a times our customer care and representation from the care angle as well, we build products. We first nail down what is the most important problem that we try to solve for. So if it means that we are trying to make our tax form simpler, if it means that we are making the data from a sales receipt captured in an accounting book easier, or if it means that auto categorization of bank expenses, we get it right by this step. Articulate very clearly as a customer what is the most important problem you're trying to solve. Now, it is not enough to understand the problem. We need to understand as a company, as an organization, what can actually be solved very well with the existing set of technology capability. In modern world, we do have AI ML, we do have artificial intelligence to detect and categorize expenses, to detect and categorize transactions automatically. So determining and understanding what are those problems that we and our partners whom we enable that can be solved very well is the next step. So that actually helps you narrow down on what you really want to solve for. Is this very much enough? Not really. The most important angle is what is it that can provide your business a durable competitive advantage. So having that right overlap between what is a customer problem, what can you and your partners correctly solve with a durable competitive advantage is the core capability that we nail down whenever we build a product. Now, once you identify the customer problem, we actually get into what we call as the design for delight. Now, the design for delight actually involves the principle of going broad and then going narrow. When you go broad, you actually try and understand what are the various problems that you can articulate and what are the various solutions that you can come up with. But do you build all of those? Not really. So the going broad angle brings in all the problems that you can solve for and all the capabilities that you have to solve those particular set of problems. Once you have narrowed down on the problem and the kind of solution that you have, you actually go through an iteration with the customer. So you have the methodology that we covered earlier, which includes our Follow Me Home program and also the remote Follow Me Home program. Whenever you meet a customer and do a Follow Me Home based on the catalog of customers that you have already narrowed down, and you could just present them, hey, last time we met you, we found these problems from you. And do you think this would be a good solution that you would pay for or you would use in order to make your life simpler? You just capture the emotions from the customer. There are various types of studies that can be done. You could do mock-up with just the customer experience that the customer is going to experience, which would be a click-through kind of screens. Or you could also build a beta, especially that goes very well with products which include at a technology which moves quite faster, where rapid development and prototyping is quite common, which includes the cloud technologies. You could build very quickly, get to the hands of the customer, leave the customer to play around and experience that, and you start gathering usage metrics or heuristics or statistics around it. So that's another way of capturing metric. So the whole idea is to go broad and then go narrow and then be extremely articulate about what are the key performance indicators. What is a study that you want to conduct? When do you declare your study to be successful? When do you declare your study to be not successful? And based on your KPIs, You discard a solution or you build and enrich your solution to build what we call as the durable competitive advantage. So this is something which we take pride. And if you were to look at Intuit and the customer practices, these are some of the top most innovative practices that we actually take pride in delivering. So we are almost halfway through the presentation. I would love to take any questions if they are, or I would get into how do we build the engineering culture.
Hey Govinda, Deepika here. So there's a question that Gautam just typed out, right? We're wondering if we could get that answered. How do I approach innovation culture in a restricted leadership environment? Say when I have control only over my unit or my team and will not be able to influence at an org level. So how do we go about such cases?
I would definitely encourage this question. This is an amazing question. This works primarily, this is applicable in many of the corporate setups, especially in a MNC environment, where having a decision making is primarily happening out of a headquarter, and the triad or the engineering team is sitting in a remote site. So first and foremost, having those empowered teams is extremely important. And I'm going to talk a little further in building those culture later. But all these practices that we talked about, it does not impact when the team is not actually the decision maker. Still, the team can make those conversations with the customer. Access to the customer, access to people who deal with the customer, right? So that is what we talk about. Either we or those whom we enable solve the problem very well. So it is extremely important to understand the customer problem as well as the life of people whom we actually enable. So that access to that information becomes extremely critical in those cases. That is one aspect. The second part is fail fast and rapid prototyping and rapid experimentation can still be done. You could still iterate over what you define as the minimum viable product. And for that, I would actually take the example, and this is typically taught in all business schools, about how do you build a car? Do you build just the tires and the body and wait until the whole car is built, or do you start building a skateboard, eventually evolve into a tricycle, a bicycle, and then you build a car, so that even when your product is getting built, there is durable customer advantage which you can measure, and you can actually take the customer progressively from one space to another. Does that answer the question?
Yep, that answers my question. Does anyone have any questions on that?
I think let's continue with the session, Deepika. So if anyone has a question, let them put it on the chat.
Yeah, please feel free to type it out, guys.
Thank you, Deepika and Gautam. So with that, let us actually move to the next interesting area of what we call as the engineering culture. Now, engineering culture, and there is a picture of a sculpture. If we were all engineers 10 centuries back, the most important engineering trait would have been building those sculptures or building those durable monuments on which we actually leave our signature. Are we building those products in software where the engineering or the product or the designer is actually leaving a footprint? And that is actually something which can motivate and which is larger than life for people who build products. And that is the fundamental essence of engineering culture. So we actually can leverage a lot on some of the modern engineering practices. With the advent of technologies, having cloud, having mobile, having big data, launching and having continuous delivery of features is not uncommon. With AWS, Google, or even Azure, it is extremely easy to set up a shop and actually deliver features to our customer. More so, if you are a product-based business, which is actually delivering products to our customers, we have mega platforms such as Flipkart or Amazon, which actually enables you to have a direct reach to the customer and provides you access to larger markets pretty easily with very minimal investment. Now, there are advent of technologies, especially on the engineering front, technology space, such as micro front-end architecture, wherein you could still make enhancements to one single page without having to wait for the whole page to get released, or having a microservice, service-oriented architecture, which actually helps you deploy just one incremental enhancement to one specific function, which could be your reservation search, without having to impact your booking flows. Having that continuous delivery with automation actually brings in speed to market. Now, with speed to market, you actually are enabling, and that goes back to the previous question that was asked, you can actually go fearlessly. Having those fearless engineers, fearless product managers who have access to technology which can enable them to release and launch faster, helps them to experiment and learn from the field much easier. So what are the different ways in which we actually enable our teams to actually innovate and move faster? This includes various aspects of protecting your code with feature flag. You could still incrementally and iteratively develop, but not release a feature by use of feature flags. We have partnership with various tech stacks like LaunchDarkly, through which we actually feature flag protect our code. You could switch on and off features based on the market that you are in, progressively based on your customer learnings. So it is extremely easy to do segmentation and throttled rollout to segments of customers very easily with feature flags. The other area that we help our customer-driven innovation is instrumentation. We always instrument various aspects of customer interactions with our product, whether it is click of a button, whether it is scrolling down, whether how long it takes to load a page in a customer environment. It is extremely important to capture those. These provide very important heuristics on customer behavior. This becomes extremely handy for teams which do not work in the same environment as the customer to gather and develop deep customer empathy. And these two of feature flags combined with modern engineering practices such as automated continuous delivery over the cloud enables rapid experimentation. This helps with A/B testing, and with the right set of measurement, we can actually define your experiments and declare a success or a failure of the experiment. And it is not uncommon for our teams in Intuit to actually have those experiments run within the code. So there is always a case where we build two UI or customer experience with two different types of experiments running with different experiences. And based on the customer measurements and KPIs, we actually switch over to the one which is hugely popular. Building autonomous enterprise teams is equally important. Invest in technology which is actually delivering value to your customer with minimal dependency, and building autonomous units of Triad is extremely important. So we follow a DAISY principle. We have driver, approver, contributor, and inform model. For every decision that is being taken or it is being proposed, the product teams are empowered to very clearly identify who drives the decision, who's the approver for that decision, who gets to contribute, and who are all informed about product decisions. Having clarity of DAISY brings in more autonomy, responsibility, and a sense of accountability in the team. We also provide technology which allows you to build extensions and variability into the team. This helps you move faster, especially in different geographical markets, whether it is a globalization or internationalization. Last but not the least, we encourage our teams to have a culture that, based on your experimentation, based on your KPIs that you got out of instrumentation with feature flags, you refactor your product. And refactoring to reigniting of the same innovative thoughts, and we get into the same cycle of go broad, go narrow, and then use customer-driven innovation and design for delight. Now, engineering culture and product innovation culture is equally important. It is extremely important to be intentional about the culture. The teams in our organization actually take pride in defining what their culture is, and they actually declare it just like a mission statement. There are team rooms where they take a printout of what their culture should be and they actually paste it. And any new member into the team is onboarded into what defines the culture. It is a principle, but it is also adaptive based on evolving customer environment and evolving engineering environment around. Now, goes without saying, team comprises individuals. Now, in order to have an amazing, high performing team, you need to get the right set of folks in the team. Focus on hiring. Never compromise on your talent. Having that best in class hiring policy is extremely important. So we follow what is called as A for A, awesome for awesome program, wherein the attention and the focus is primarily on the talents, craft, instead of having the person go through a set of questions. We look for a craft in a person and we look for demonstration of a craft. As I covered earlier, building a product which is making our customers happy needs your employees to be happy. So, what are all those things that you focus on in order to have a very highly engaged team? First and foremost, I would call out saying that having fun while building great products is extremely important. Having a flat organization structure helps in easier decision making and helps the team move in velocity. Another area that I have personally experimented is a two in a box model. So, especially this works in engineering teams when you have a technology leader who is essentially an architect or a principal engineer, work with an engineering manager. Engineering manager is typically accountable for delivery, schedule, and ensuring that people are happy, while the architect is accountable for ensuring that whatever is getting built is built in the right technology, in a durable manner, in a scalable manner. Having these two people empowered is extremely important. So that also means that the organization needs to have the right career path for individual contributors who take technology or architecture direction. They get to decide who gets promoted. They get to decide who is in part of which team, and to the extent that these two leadership roles always work in pair. The other area that the team should always worry about is also what is called as a broken window syndrome. It is extremely, and this comes out of a study which was done by the New York Police Department to see what increases crime rate, which is essentially cases of broken windows and unmanaged homes. So this is an area to watch out for, and it is extremely important to have your product triad acknowledge the need to invest either in experience. You may need to undergo a reskinning of the whole experience in tune with changing times, or you may actually need to go for technology refresh, right? But it is extremely important to invest in those to reap benefits in the future. These fall under the hygiene category, wherein having these right investments in the right experience or the technology will not pay you off directly. Lack of doing that will hurt your business. And last but not the least is left shift decision making. So the cost of a bad decision can actually prove to be extremely costlier if the detection of a bad decision is done later. So there are companies, especially in the chip manufacturing sector, who pay their employees, and it's not uncommon in the Korean and Taiwan sector to find that canceled projects are actually rewarded for their engineers for detecting that this is actually a failed idea, because the cost of detection later in the stage can prove fatal for businesses. So what are the different ways in which you could left shift? Left shift your security, left shift your quality, let's shift your operations thinking and your automation thinking much earlier into your design phase. Include security as one of those criteria even before you build products. Include scalability as one of those criteria because never underestimate the power of your network. The moment a product is launched, it can actually go viral. And if you actually have an production issue with availability of your service to your customer, that's a broken promise. And your existing customers will not find it easier. You will not find it easier to retain those customers. I will not dwell deeper into some of the commandments that we call it. This is all about how do you build a great culture in your team where your top talent feels rewarded. And that is all about being extremely intentional about whom you want to reward and whom you want to let go in the teams. For this, your leadership needs to have a servant leadership attitude, having a focus on encouraging diversity. Diversity isn't all about having male female ratio or having same sex gender work in your organization. Diversity is all about encouraging a different behavior or a different line of thinking in your business. It is also a critical currency in gaining credibility and trust in your organization, and which promotes transparency. Having talked about engineering culture and also talked about the commandments in building great culture, we also focus on what are those areas which helps in building a great operation. It is not important to identify the great idea. It is not just important to actually build the product right. It is equally important to make sure that once you acquire your customers, you nurture them very well. And operational excellence is those set of areas which you would focus on in order to build a thriving, innovative culture. Every defect that is seen in your product or an outage in your portal that you see is a broken promise to your customer commitment. In a healthy product ecosystem, the product team knows that there is actually a broken promise to a customer even before the actual customer reports in. Because a customer care call is the last resort for a customer. There are many other customers who drop away from the funnel and do not even intimate you when they find a problem because it is just not the most important issue in their life. Having that acknowledgement encourages your teams to build those right set of instrumentation and monitoring controls to handle latency, to handle availability, and even detect failed customer interactions or intrusions, which actually are security defects in your product. Having them proactively being looked at every day by your teams is also innovation because innovation is not about acquiring customers. Innovation is also about retaining customers and preventing your leaky bucket. So, the underlying theme around all these principles that we talked about is indeed the extreme ownership. This is one book that is of my personal favorite, where the US Navy SEALs talked about how they actually won the Iraq War. This book is called The Extreme Ownership. And one of the catchy lines from that book, which we derive inspiration, me personally and my team, is the line that it may not be your fault, but it's still your problem. Having a defective customer experience may not be the problem, may not be the fault of an engineer who designed it because the engineer did not take part in the decision making, but it's still hurting the engineer because it actually impacts the business. And that is the theme behind extreme ownership. In an innovative environment, while there is a clear role and responsibility, you are also encouraged to wear multiple hats. And that culture is what brings in innovative mindset, and that fosters and nurtures different customers in your sector. So with that, I complete my slide, and I'm happy to take the next set of questions.
Thank you so much, Govinda. Thank you so much on that. So I have a couple of questions that have come our way. I think some of these have been answered in your session. So in fact, there were a couple of them who came up with the same question on, how do we incentivize innovation across my teams? I am a founder of a startup, and we have about 15 to 20 employees. How do I incentivize my different teams and the team leads to, bring in innovation as a part of the culture? So that was a question definitely answered to an extent, by your session. And another common question that's come our way is, how do we keep measuring some of the initiatives that my leads end up driving to bring in an innovation culture? If you would like to quickly touch upon these two,
Yeah.
it'll probably be good, because these are a couple of common questions.
These are amazingly great questions. These are some of the questions that I get even in internal teams and externally when I actually go to talks across the India ecosystem. Uh, Answering the first question, a few best practices would actually help. Be intentional about whom you want to reward. And having that intention actually will drive the organizational practices. In our organization, we do actually have what is called as UT time. So every engineer is provided 10% of their time as unstructured time, which they can actually go and work on areas which excite them. So that means a backend engineer who's actually interested in building a feature in mobile is actually encouraged to do that. The UI engineer who is working on the presentation tier, builds those graphical user interfaces, is also encouraged to think very differently and can roll out artificial intelligence or ML models to customers, bringing in those personalization. So this unstructured time helps engineers innovate, and also overall helps in boosting the morale because it helps in employee retention. The other days that we actually focus on are, there are a few other activities that we run as an organization. Other one is engineering days. During engineering days, we actually run once in 6 months across the globe in all our sites, wherein we allow engineers to pair up with whoever they would want to and define the problem that they want to actually launch. And we encourage those employees who actually take an idea to production within a month of engineering days. Engineering days is a week-long festival where engineers get to define the problem, define the solution, and also define the customer segment that they want to target the solution against. Similarly, so this talks about new feature development and new customer acquisition, whereas for your existing set of customers, we also run what is called as the care jams, where based on customer reported feedback, we let engineers and employees build those enhancements or fix those critical defects which do not catch the attention of the eye. So having that intention will definitely help. Does that answer the question on what are the practices around fostering innovation? The second question was around how do you measure innovation, or what are the KPIs that we typically follow? A few metrics will actually help, though primarily we have three metrics always from a product perspective to look at. What is the total number of customers that we acquire? What is the retention rate of our customers? And what is the satisfaction index, or PRS, product recommendation score, or net promoter score from our customers whom we acquired? A triad of these three will always help you determine, are you getting a healthy mix of customers? Are customers happy staying with you, or is this a leaky bucket? Now, under this umbrella of metrics, you could still have the funnel of how many customers visited your feature, what is the funnel drop, how many customers adopted it, how many customers made it viral, how many recommended to others, how many actually continue to use beyond the first use. So these are some of the metrics that we use for various products and various product features that we develop. Gautam, are there more questions?
Govind, so there are a couple of more questions, but paucity of time, I may have to cut this short here. So what I've asked my team to do is compile this set of questions. And so there will be a feedback form also being circulated to all the participants today. So we had about 20 participants on the call. Some of them have started dropping out because they have some commitments at 5. So what we'll be doing is we will be circulating a feedback form right after this. And we've also asked them to, write the unanswered questions on that. So we've anyways got a bunch of questions already. Let me compile them and send it across to you. And while we send out a mail, to the attendees, we will probably, respond to them with some of the nuggets and responses from you as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you can
thank you so much, Govind.
You can always reach out to me in LinkedIn, and this is my Twitter handle as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think, that was definitely giving us some insights into, what exactly happens at Intuit, right? A global product company and the way you run your teams. We would have loved to have some more time with you, maybe brought a bit more into some of your initiatives for your teams. But, we could probably do that on a later date. Thank you so much for your time, Govind. We will get back to you on some of these unanswered questions, and you could probably respond to us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, Govind. Thank you so much, guys. We'll drop you a mail soon. You can share your feedback. You can share your unanswered questions, and we'll get them answered through Govind. Thank you so much for joining. And the next session is going to be in a couple of days. You will get a mail, regarding that.